And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, share a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you wanted to join us for the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University, at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, and Rumble, Coffee Talk 2, as we get ready to jump in here. Miss Kitty is in the room. You can't see her if you're watching. I'll say hello to some of the people that have chimed in. I see Jimmy has joined us here today, as well as Marvel fan, Jeff, and Vitor, if I pronounce that correctly, is from Portugal. Glad you could make it today as we get ready to dive into the news. And you saw the thumbnail, I'm sure, of poor Principal McVickers, a.k.a. Tim Walz. Walz. We'll get to him, though. There's a few things I want to run over first. I think John Boy has joined us. And hello to everyone else who was watching or listening that cannot or chooses not to say hello. That's fine. Glad you're with us. Now, I did an impromptu live yesterday. I wanted to test a couple of things. And I basically turned it into an hour-long rant about taxes, child support, and the justice system, and I could have kept going, believe it. But one of the things that I had mentioned, and I just want to touch on it right now for context, was a woman who had her house taken from her over a $6 and change error in like county property taxes, and I think specifically it was school tax. Okay. And one of the viewers, you probably, if you watched long enough, you've probably seen him in the comments section, Johnny Future. He, because I wasn't sure whatever happened with that, because they sold her house out from under her at a sheriff's sale, and they tried to put her out. This is a widow. She had kids. I believe one of them was paraplegic or quadriplegic. I'm trying to remember. Okay. And I wasn't sure whatever happened with that story, and he found out and he sent me a link. So I wanted to elaborate on that. And Fluke Man has joined us. He wants to know if there's a Second Amendment task force. I haven't heard that. Officially. Now this is what he found and sent to me, and I'll share the link and I'll just go over it here briefly. And this is a widow. And it was $6.30. I wasn't sure how much it was. It was $6.30. And this is taxgirl.com article, okay? And it was evidently ended up in good news. Widow who lost her home over $6.30 tax bill. So Pennsylvania woman can keep her home. Decision from Pennsylvania Supreme Court put an end to the litigation involving the sale of her home due to an alleged underpayment. Eileen Battisti allegedly failed to pay $6.30, which was interest on a late payment of property taxes in Beaver County, Pennsylvania. Battisti and her husband, Anthony, bought the home in 1999. Battisti's husband died, leaving her with 3 children, the home, and the mortgage. She used the proceeds from the husband's life insurance to pay the mortgage, but was not able to pay the taxes on the property on time, which resulted in a $6.30 oversight. So she paid the taxes. She paid what she thought she was supposed to pay, whatever her tax bill was at the time, but $6.30 in interest had accrued, and she was not aware of it at the time. Okay. Now, apparently, it says the original tax bill was $833.88 plus penalties and a late fee, but she did not realize about the $6.30 interest. because they had not sent her an update of the bill. So they seized her house. They seized her house. They sold it for $120,000 at a sheriff's sale. The house was valued at that time to be worth between $260,000 and $300,000. After they took out her 630 and then whatever other claims they had against her, including court fees, they offered her, or they told her she was entitled to the difference, which was $108,039, which she wouldn't take. And she squatted essentially in her own home. And this battle went back and forth for some time, apparently, but finally ended up in the hands of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And in their opinion, just reading ahead here or skimming ahead, in their opinion, the county never or could not demonstrate that they diligently made sure that she was aware that there was a penalty in the first place. Because according to them, they said they sent her a letter and the judge said, okay, and stamped it. And then they sold her house and tried to throw her and her children out. But the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania turned around and said, no, that's not a fair sale. They reversed the sale from whoever it was that purchased it from the sheriff's office, who, according to this, by the way, offered to sell the house back to her for the full assessed value, $260,000 to $300,000, which is really dirty, by the way. So they gave him his money back, sent him packing, told her she could keep her house. In the end, in the long run, because because Beaver County said, oh yeah, we sent her a letter, doesn't mean that she got it or understood. I mean, it's a $6.30 oversight. Shit, I'd have paid that myself if I worked in the county clerk's office rather than put a widow and children in the street. $6.30, and you're going to go this far. You think at least the county, wanting to save themselves some embarrassment, would look at that and say, yeah, you know what? Let's work with this woman. Let's work with this woman. I see Helter has joined us, as well as Dragon, Raccoon. I just want to catch up here. H12, AJ, and Flukeman said, so she bought it back for $630. No, I think she would have had to buy it back for whatever had it cured after the $6.30, but she got her house back. So, whatever fees, interest, penalties were affiliated with that, she probably ended up having to pay, which was like a couple $1,000s. But it's better than being thrown out on your ass. And this never should have happened. And I remember reading this story a couple of years back and talking about it. And John, I wasn't sure how things ended, and Johnny Future found it and sent me the article. So the Supreme Court I mean, think about this. It had to go as far as the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania for somebody to finally stand up and say, you know what, this whole thing is unethical. You did this wrong. You did this wrong. It needs to be fixed. Get it fixed. And now it's shut and done. But it did just government overreach at its finest. Government overreach. And again, you'd think even just to save themselves the embarrassment, you think the mayor of Beaver County or the town council or somebody would sit there and say, yeah, can we fix this so that we don't look like a bunch of jackasses in the media? You think they would at least think that much? No, it's the rule of law and we must do this and that. And they buried this woman and her kids, or tried to. She eventually won. Puck says they spent more money taking the woman's house than $6.30. Yeah. It was an absolute joke. Incredible. And before we get to Tim Walz, just a couple of other things here. The man who will not go away, Tim Walz, will not go away. I really think he's basically campaigning for 2028 now, like 3 years ahead of schedule. So, Daily Caller article, just 4 Democrats vote to keep non-citizens from voting in U.S. elections. And there's a reason why I wanted to talk about this. So here you go. 4 Democrats joined House Republicans to pass legislation Thursday, that is yesterday, that calls for stricter regulations to ensure only U.S. citizens are participating in the federal elections, right? So the House of Representatives voted 220 to 208 in favor of H.R. 22, more popularly known as the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or SAVE Act. The bill would require states to obtain proof of citizenship prior to registering an individual for any federal election, and also require state officials to remove all non-citizens from existing voter rolls. Because, as you are aware, I'm sure, in most states now, all of them, you are automatically registered. It says the SAVE Act was heavily backed by the GOP, with 216 Republicans voting in favor. However, 4 Democrats joined their GOP colleagues in supporting legislation. Democrat Representatives Henry Collier of Texas, Jared Golden of Maine, ugh, of Washington, and Ed Case of Hawaii were the only ones in favor. Now, the reason why I think this is interesting and the reason I wanted to talk about it was this is another example of towing the party line. So all the Democrats voted no on this because that's what Democrats are supposed to do. Whoever gives them their marching orders told them to vote no on this, and the majority of them listened. It's as simple as that. And this is something that we have seen with the Democrat Party many, many times. When I was getting tons of mail from them, you recall, during the election cycle, they send tons of mailers. And the ones from Democrats, it always says on, or not always, but it says often on their flyers and in their letters to vote Democrat up and down the ticket. So about don't worry about whether or not these people are qualified. Don't worry about what their track record is. Don't worry about if they're in trouble for anything. Maybe they broke the law. Don't worry about any of that. Just put your blinders on and vote Democrat. And this is an example of that. This is an example of that. It goes against standard Democrat talking points. So they all vote the party line instead of their conscience, which is what they are supposed to do as lawmakers. That's what they're supposed to do. Okay? It's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. And this is an example of that. So only 4 Democrats in the House said, yeah, probably a good idea if states are required to make sure it's a citizen who's voting. And the rest of them just towed the line, like always. And Monkey has joined us. The rest of them just towed the line. And I'm really just kind of tired of that. Just vote Democrat no matter what it is. Doesn't have to be ethical, doesn't have to make sense, doesn't have to be moral, doesn't have to be qualified. Just vote Democrat because you don't need a reason. You don't need a reason. And Tuck says hive mind, basically. Basically, that's what it is. It's a hive mind mentality. Do as you are told. And part of that hive mind, and we're going to be discussing that in further detail coming up here, because it's something that Tim Walz has been touting at his town hall meetings, is that this bill is going to keep women from voting. Seriously. That it's going to keep women from voting somehow. Flukeman said, to be fair, they should only charge her fees and penalties the second she found out, not after what it had built up to after the trial had ended. Yeah, talking about the first talking point with the woman who lost her house in Pennsylvania there. And Peter said, let's all vote government out. Yeah, I wish it was that easy. Sven says they want us to be drones. Yeah, that's what they teach you in public school. So I think I got one more here before we get on to Tim Walz. Tim Walz, this is a Washington Examiner article. More Doge pounding on or pouncing upon fraud. Washington Examiner, Labor Department touts Doge's incredible discovery of nearly $400 million in fraudulent unemployment payments. Department of Labor Security. Hold on a second. This is going to bounce. Department of Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer confirmed Thursday the Department of Government Efficiency uncovered hundreds of millions of dollars in fraudulent unemployment insurance payments. Why couldn't the Department of Labor do that? Why does Doge have to come in and operate its oversight for this to come to light? Isn't that what you're already supposed to be doing? Doge, which scrutinizes government for waste and fraud, said Wednesday it found $382 million in unemployment payments claimed by thousands of people over 115 years old, under 6 years old, and with birth dates that are 15 years in the future. Oh, they're coming back in time for their checks. Chavez DeRemer praised Doge for finding the fraudulent claims and recovering stolen tax dollars. Lady, you're already supposed to be doing this. Why do you need an oversight committee to come in and find things that you should have already been handling? Quote, we will catch these thieves and keep working to root out egregious fraud. Accountability is here, Chavez DeRemer said on X. The fraudulent payments were found during Doge's survey of unemployment insurance claims dating back to 2020. 24,500 people over 115 years of 28,000 people between 1 and 5 claimed 254 million. 9,700 people with birth dates that are 15 years or more in the future claimed 69 million in benefits. In one case, someone with a birthday with the year 2154 was able to claim $41,000. Oh my God. In a statement responding to the findings, de facto Doge leader Musk said there were no checks or systems in place at the Department of Labor to keep fraudulent recipients from collecting payments. Quote, there was no sanity check for impossibly young or impossibly old people from unemployment insurance. So crazy that I had to read it several times before it sank in. Oh my God. Protests against Doge, including demonstrations spearheaded by Democrat organizations such as Move On and Indivisible, have broken out nationwide as Musk's team looks to overhaul Washington's bureaucracies. This is clear fraud. This is what you're trying to prevent Doge from doing. Clear fraud. 400 million in the last 4 years from the Department of Labor in really obvious false claims that they should have already caught. and for some reason didn't see it or weren't looking or didn't want to be bothered. Flukeman says Democrats are creating more and more, or yeah, creating more and more like sci-fi movies. And Puck says Democrats are defending fraud. Why is anyone taking them seriously about anything? Indeed. I just thought this was fascinating. And then I bet you there's people who are legitimately trying to file unemployment claims and getting heavily scrutinized. Getting heavily scrutinized. This makes no sense. And then, of course, Chavez de Reamer is going to, of course, she's going to praise Doge for helping them because she doesn't want to lose her job, because this is something, again, that the Department of Labor should have already been doing. They should have already been doing this. They should have already been scrutinizing these things. Jericho says, wrong line of work. Why didn't I think of this? I know. You could have been collecting millions in unemployment benefits. And they probably have no paper trail to find it either. I mean, where's my unemployment check? Come on now. Where's my U.S. aid package? This is the problem. And there are people, because they're, again, following the narrative. Oh, it's evil. Doge is evil. They're stealing our money. They're stealing our money. Your money's already getting stolen. It's already getting stolen. He's trying to walk this back. Trying to recover it, trying to cut down on the waste, trying to cut back on the bureaucracy and all the red tape and all the redundancies in government that are wasting us away. And then things like this. Things like this. And by comparison to the amount of government spending, $400 million isn't really a lot of money, not from their perspective. But it's your money. It's your money. And it shouldn't be getting wasted like this. It shouldn't be getting wasted like this. So we may as well move around to Principal McVickers. Yeah, Sven says pro steal my money protests. Principal McVickers, who I used for the thumbnail, because he very much looks like Tim Walz, although Walz has a much higher pitched voice. Walz doesn't sound as manly as the media makes him out to be, because he's a man's manly man who's manly. He's a lumberjack and he don't care. Tim Walz. And his voice, I swear, this guy's voice. And how old is Tim Walz again? He looks older than he is. Okay? This guy will not go away. He will not go away. And he says in this interview, okay, and this is an independent article. This is an independent article. I see him in the news every day now. 2 or 3 times, different things. I just don't bother with all of it. But yeah, I mean, this is the earliest I've ever seen anyone campaigning for president. He's 3 years ahead of schedule here. I think they're really going to try to run this guy. I believe it. And he's a problem. The title of this is Tim Walz names the 3 mistakes Democrats made in the last election. Are you one of those mistakes? Because bringing you in was one of the big problems. Nobody wanted Walz or Harris in those offices, including other lawmakers. And that's reflective of the college. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who ran as Kamala Harris's vice president nominee on the Democratic ticket in last year's election, has identified 3 key areas that he believes their campaign failed to address, leading to the party's disastrous defeat to Trump and J.D. Vance. Okay? The Electoral College, I meant. The Electoral College didn't even want these two jokers. Now, this is in an interview with the Washington Post after a, quote, People's Town Hall event in Youngstown, Ohio on Monday. And he was just in Texas, by the way, too. He was in a town hall in Texas, I think, yesterday, right? And was booed by people in the audience. Walz said he believed the Democratic mission to stop Trump floundered because they failed to reach Latino voters, did not do enough to acknowledge voters' anger about the war in Gaza, and did not have a sufficiently agile media strategy. Quote, people ran what they had in the moment, what they thought was best, but I do think it's irresponsible to not look back and say, okay, what could we do to win? It's not enough to blame something else. I don't blame the voters. I blame what we did not do. I put my suggestions out there. If those aren't the ones that are chosen, I work as hard as I can for the ones that were. Oh my God. This guy. This guy. The man's man. Manly man. Give him a rifle and a flannel shirt and a camouflage hat. He's a man now. He grew a pair. He got his first chest hair last night. And that's not what he said in the town hall. See, so he's saying they didn't connect with Latino voters. He didn't acknowledge Gaza or anger about Gaza. And they didn't have a sufficiently agile, media strategy. That's what Walz says. That's what Timmy says here. Nowhere in here does he say that people didn't like him or that they don't like his policies. They don't like Harris. They don't want her to be president. They don't want him to be vice president. They don't like him. They don't trust him. And then when he was in the town hall, now this is what he said in the Washington Post interview after the town hall in Ohio. Then he goes to the town hall in Texas. This is where he was booed. Okay. I think this was yesterday or the day before, right? When was he in Texas? So he says the problem was that they didn't attack their agendas strongly enough. And he's talking about their, quote, what would otherwise be referred to as woke agendas. You didn't pound that hard enough. I don't think you can pound it harder than putting tampons in the boys' bathroom, Tim. Because that's the kind of stuff he's talking about. LGBT stuff, trans stuff, all of that. This is why he was getting booed at the town hall. So that's a different narrative. Oh, we weren't woke enough. That's why we lost. No, that is why you lost both the popular and the electoral college vote. The regular popular vote doesn't even matter. It's the electoral college that matters, and they didn't even want you. Yeah, Puck says veterans were getting on his ass at the town hall. Yeah, they were heckling him. They were booing him. Then he has the nerve in the town hall, and this is Texas again, that I'm trying to remember how he worded it, that he's tired of seeing old white men in government ruining things. Tim, that's you. That was actually supposed to be a jab at Donald Trump, I think. But Tim, that's you. You're the old white man. You look as old as Donald Trump, and you're not even that old. You're not even that old. Let me see how old he is. 61. He looks older. It says he's 61. 61 years old. Puck says Waltz is a pre-op trans. Is he? Oh no. Monkey says Tim is hitting himself just like walking on a rake, like what Sideshow Bob does. Yes. Indeed. Indeed. But he says different narratives everywhere that he goes. But basically, his bottom line is he feels like the agenda wasn't woke enough. How woke does it need to be, Tim? How woke does it need to be? And then he spun the narrative, and I alluded to this earlier, that because of this SAFE Act, the now law verification, which should have already been in place, that verification that you should be an American citizen to vote and prove that you are, that it's going to cause women to not be able to vote now. This is the narrative that is going around with Democrat lawmakers right now. Women aren't going to, it's going to impact women and they're not going to be able to vote. Women aren't going to be able to vote, Tim, because of the SAFE Act. Women aren't going to be able to vote. Does that make any sense? But they're spinning this. Walz isn't the only one. They're spinning this. Okay. As he goes around and he does these people's voice town halls. And my question is, when are you governing Minnesota? When are you Tim, you're supposed to be the governor of Minnesota, right? Have you been back there since you were on the campaign trail with Harris? I can't tell, because he's running around all over the country doing these town halls, doing interviews with newspapers and with mainstream media, going on podcasts. He's in California one day, Ohio the next, Texas the next. When are you doing your job? And that's just not, whoa, Kitty. That's not just a question for Tim. Don't step on the keyboard, okay? Come here. Miss Kitty. That's not just a question for Tim, because I always wonder that every time I see any governor running for president. Aren't you supposed to be taking care of your constituents? Isn't that what you were hired for? Isn't that what you were hired for? Monkey says maybe the DNC should have not crap talked the average working American. Give me this. Don't step on my keyboard. Sorry, I'm having a cat problem. Miss Kitty jumped up on here and she's trying to lay across the keyboard. Oh my goodness. Move. And Sven says Democrats think women are too stupid to get a license. I guess. And I know he had that town hall. Let me see if I can pull up that one of those articles real quick here. Why are you running? Again, he's campaigning for president, is what this really is. That's what this is. This is Courthouse News Service. Tim Walz and Texas Democrats ask voters, where is your congressman? Houston, in the latest stop of his town hall tour through GOP-held districts, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz visited Rosenberg, Texas, Thursday, answering voters' questions about their anxieties and priorities. Oh, another thing I wanted to say, going back to one of the previous articles, okay, and this was back to Doge. Something I had found out about in a different article, and I wanted to make a point. I almost forgot because it's not in this article, but I read it elsewhere. Back to the Washington Examiner article here about Doge discovering 400 million in fraudulent unemployment payments. Those payments, you want to guess where they are? 3 states. See if you can guess which 3 states that was happening. Tuck says by agility he means vicissitude, the ability to change to whatever the base wants to see in the moment to trick the base out of more money and votes. And Monkey Mama, he says, they are my aunt and my daughter keeps telling me this. I keep telling them they're full of crap. Raccoon guesses New York City, Pennsylvania, and California. You're close. The 3 states where the majority of that fraud is coming from: Massachusetts, New York, and California. Like 90% of it's coming out of those 3. It's not in this article, but I had read it in a separate article. So, see, Fluke Man was close too. Everybody guessed California, New York, but yeah, Massachusetts was the third culprit in that. Massachusetts, New York, and California are the troublemakers in that. But again, Tim running around all over the country doing his so-called town halls, doing his little town halls, and in the meantime, hold on a second, you see what I have to deal with here. In the meantime, who is governing Minnesota? See? Little brat sitting, I had to move the keyboard because she was laying halfway across it. When are you doing your job, Tim? Were you ever doing your job? Were you ever doing your job? And that's not just an argument, like I said, for Tim, because I wonder about that every time I see any governor running for president. It's like, well, you have a job now. You're right. I mean, I don't know. But okay, his vice presidential run is over. He's still on the campaign trail because that's what this is. Do they really think this guy's got a shot? Man, if he wins, I'll just go live in a treehouse because that makes no sense. That makes no sense. This guy is nuts. And Sven says America vomited out the Democrats' bigotry once. They keep pushing it back at us. Yeah, they want you to drink it back up. And Peter says I had staff members quit and then claimed we fired a staff member quit, claimed we fired her so she could claim unemployment, and they gave it to her even though we provided emails of her quitting. Happened in California. There you go. Now, just to clarify, now one of his big talking points right now is this new voting law is going to keep women from being able to vote, right? Watch this. This came down the pipe this morning. The Western Journal article. Hillary Clinton caught pushing absurd lie about election security bill that just passed in the House. And there's Hillary. Yeah, she's still out there too. She hasn't gone away either. All right. The only one who's really gone away is Biden. And I think the only reason for that is because he's too feeble. All right. It says, sometimes we forget that not long ago, the establishment enjoyed an effective monopoly over the dissemination of information and opinion. Indeed, old habits die hard, which helps explain why establishment politicians, notwithstanding the rise of alternative media and the awakening of America First populism under President Trump, continue to spread the most obvious falsehoods. They have never paid a serious price for their lies, and they cannot help themselves. Obviously, that portion is opinion, but here's the meat of it right here. Thursday, on the social media platform X, former Secretary of State and 2016 Democrat presidential nominee Hillary Clinton engaged in loathsome fear-mongering when she claimed that the SAVE Act, the election integrity bill passed by the Republican-controlled House of Representatives Thursday, could disenfranchise as many as 69 million women from voting, prompting a slew of rebuttals from X users who, like most Americans, favor secure elections. And this is a quote from Hillary. Hillary Clinton, quote, "Update. The House just passed the Republican voter suppression measure that threatens voting access for millions of Americans, including 69 million women," listen to the logic here, "whose married names don't match their birth certificate. Make sure your senators know you expect them to stand against it." She's got to think, and I know, I say it all the time, people are not that smart. People are not that smart, but you've got to think people are really freaking dumb to have them believe that because if you got married, that you're on account of your original birth certificate having a different surname, you're not going to be able to vote now. Who brings their birth certificate to voter registration? Oh my God. All they want for the DMV to do, because again, in most states, if not all of them now, the DMV automatically registers you, whether you want to or not. And they know already if you're a citizen or not when you apply for the driver's license. All they got to do is check that box in the computer when you apply, or when you renew your license, or transfer your license, or whatever. Real simple. Real simple. They are not 69 million women are not going to be prevented from voting because they got married. That makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. And there you go. Sven says Clintons are wonderful, upstanding people. And Puck says Hillary Pelosi 2028. What's wrong with you? I think she's too old to run again. But then again, we did end up with Biden. I don't know how old Hillary is right now. I don't know how old she is. But this is the Democrat talking point about this bill. They're trying to convince people that they're going to lose their right to vote, or women, they're going to lose their right to vote if they got married and didn't keep their original surname. That's the most ridiculous thing you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. If I would try to invent a stupid talking point, I couldn't come up with this. And it goes to, and like I said, yeah, people are not that bright, but you don't have to treat them like they're stupid. And that's what these people do. She's treating them like they're stupid. Oh, Puck. You're going to get me in trouble. I'll put your comment up. I don't know if I can read that. That's the other argument, by the way, about Puck, since you brought that up. One of the Democrat talking points against all the deportations is that any number of these illegal immigrants that are being thrown out of the country could grow up to be either the next astronaut or discover the cure for cancer or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, now tell me the same thing about aborted children. You could make that same, or you don't want to hear that side of the argument. You don't want to hear that side of the argument. Incredible. But yeah, that's how stupid they treat people. Not just that they think they're stupid, but treat them that way. You don't have to treat someone like they're an idiot. Give them a chance. Most people are not that bright. Give them a chance. Speaking of, oh God, this woman. Speaking of hardline, party line, extreme left Democrat politicians. Who knows who this is? Look at that image real quick. Yeah, I'm getting into this one because they're running her through the media right now, too. That's Ketanji Brown. Remember her? CNN article. Ketanji Brown Jackson is not holding back against Trump or her fellow justices. The vast Trump litigation, sure to define the Supreme Court over the next 4 years, has already exposed Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's resistance. She speaks up, wields her pen as a dagger, and doesn't care if she goes it alone. Ooh, that's really well put. I give the writer credit for being flowery with that, making her sound like she's the Three Musketeers here. She's out to save your life. In a case this week, she condemned the Trump administration's efforts to whisk people away to a notoriously brutal foreign-run prison, adding, "For lovers of liberty, this should be quite concerning." She also had things to say about the Department of Education's policy cancellations, and says that the Republicans have highly questionable behavior. This is the same woman. This is the same woman who, when she was trying to justify being nominated for this job on the Supreme Court, sat before Congress and said she didn't know what a woman was. When asked if she knew if she could, define genders, said basically she doesn't know what the difference between a man and a woman because she's not a biologist. But you want to be on the Supreme Court. You want to sit on the bench of the highest court in the nation, and you don't know what male and female is? Okay. You're a mother. You gave birth. Do you not know how that happened? You woke up and there was a baby. The stork brought it. And, I could elaborate on that all day. I've made plenty of examples. I would have loved to have been on that committee. Miss Brown, how did you get here today? Oh, I drove. Are you sure? Are you a mechanic? How did you get dressed? Are you sure? Are you a tailor? I mean, serious. Puck says she's a leftist dingbat, dumber than dirt. Oh no, she knows exactly what she's doing. She's not stupid. This is what she was put in place for. This is another example of towing that party line, no matter what. Even if it makes you look like an idiot. These people aren't stupid. Oh no. She knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what she's doing. This is part of the game. And there are people who will believe this. There's plenty of people who sat there and like, oh, listen to how progressive she is. Of course she doesn't know what a woman is. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, let me not forget about this article. Hold on a second. You know who else doesn't know who a woman is? You'll love this. I got to go to a local New Jersey news station for this one because I don't know if this one's making the rounds. I find some weird stuff. And this is from Channel 6 Action News, New Jersey. If it ever shares. Trying to get this to work. Channel 6 Action News, New Jersey. Has it come up? Or is it acting up still? Let me try that again. Something went wrong. Channel 6 Action News, New Jersey. Come on now. There we go. Here it comes. Controversial New Jersey questionnaire asks about sexual orientation of unborn babies. So when you go to the hospitals now in New Jersey, about your unborn child's gender. It asks new parents about orientation gender identity. The form has now gotten the attention of a New Jersey state lawmaker who has proposed legislation to change that. It comes after she saw the social media post of one mother-to-be who received the questionnaire from a local hospital asking questions that she did not expect. The questions included, what was your baby's what baby gender assigned at birth? Is it male, female, trans? Is your baby going to be straight, gay, bisexual, gender queer? And this is a quote from the lawmaker here. It's so absurd and so ridiculous. When I first put up a post about this, I had a significant number of people calling me a liar, saying it was made up. The mom received the questionnaire from Vinland Hospital in the Isperia Health Network, but hospitals across the state of New Jersey have been sending out the same form asking about gender identity and sexual orientation of babies. And it's the end result of a law passed in 2020 to collect more demographic data about patients in order to better serve them as it claims. How are you going to answer that about an unborn baby? We're going that far back now? We're going that far back now? Is it going to be male, female, trans, straight, gay, bisexual, or genderqueer? This is what you can expect in a maternity ward in New Jersey now? I hope they fix this because that's absurd. That's absurd. I thought the gender questions from the VA hospital were insane. This makes absolutely no sense. Hold on, I got to close this because it's messing up my feed. There we go. And Raccoon says that's really crazy. It is. Marvel says insane. Puck says better serve, you mean identify the resistance. I guess. I mean, who sits there and thinks, I mean, you got to think about the mentality of the individual that has an unborn child and somehow knows they're trans or gay or something like that. It makes no sense. There's no way. There's no way. And there you go. Marvel says, I can't even talk to people that think this is okay. No. And you should avoid them. You should stay away from people like that. What is it, Matthew 10:14? Matthew 10:14 talks about shaking the dust from your feet. When Yeshua, that is Jesus, tells people to go out to the community and talk to people, if you're not well received, if people don't want to hear it, if you can't communicate with them, leave that place and shake the dust from your feet. I know I'm paraphrasing it a little bit. I don't have it in front of me. Basically, leave them alone. Get away from there. Don't talk to those people. Flukeman said sexual orientation is none of their bloody business. Indeed, it shouldn't be, but it is. It's been allowed to be. It's been geared that way. Hi. Why'd you come galloping in here? Why'd you come galloping in here, little thing? Come here. Come here, dear. Oh my gosh. Granny Smith, everybody. Hello, dear. It's little Granny. She's probably not going to want to stay up here because Miss Kitty is still sitting on the desk, and they usually stay away from each other. Here you go. There you go. That makes absolutely no sense to me. Absolutely no sense. That is not something that you can even determine. And, I will still make the argument. I do not believe that anybody is, quote, born like that. Especially after the interviews and the study that I had to do way back in the early 90s for the Boston Phoenix. I mean, literally every single one of them was molested in adolescence. Every interview subject was manipulated. Every interview subject was manipulated. You can't tell me you started off like that. Something happened. Something bad. Something very bad happened. By adults spinning a narrative to justify their taking advantage of a child. And by adolescence, I mean like average age 8 to 10. And if you ever saw, I forget who used to do that show where they would catch molesters and they would interview them when they showed up at the house, and then they'd leave and they'd get arrested. Who was that? That was 60 Minutes used to do that, right? And it was always the same excuse, and this is the same thing that was told to me in those interviews. Oh, well, I could tell that they were gay, and I was just trying to help them. Thank you. Dragon says, Catch a Predator by Chris Hansen. That's what it was. I couldn't think. I can't remember everything. Every one of them was assaulted by someone who told them that they could somehow tell and that they were just trying to help. And they end up taking, some poor 7, 8, 9-year-old kid ends up getting taken advantage of by some dude in his 40s. It's appalling. And I guess rather than admit that to themselves, they say that's how they were born. I know I'm going to piss off somebody. So we'll just go ahead and jump to the debt clock then. Debt clock. And see where we are at here. This is going a lot slower. Looking at the U.S. national debt, of course, it's still 36 trillion. But if you look at the counting ticker, even at the beginning when we first started looking at this third section, the millions section, used to be going about as fast as the billions section. So it is slowing down. Future tariffs is still at $659 billion. And again, remember, the majority of them have not gone into place yet. So we'll see where that ends up in the future. Doge currently at $305 billion in projected savings. It looks like it'll hit 306 by this evening. 306 by this evening. So there we go. We are at the top of the hour, so I'll go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. So thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will catch you again tomorrow.